Hey, I'm Tanya, your resident behavior analyst. I'm here to talk to you about part 3 of a 5-part series where we talk about how to teach your child how to express their emotions. This is going to help with meltdowns, having difficulty handling their emotions, and having difficulty communicating their emotions. Remember to click the link below to grab the freebie that's got all 5 steps that you'll need to follow along with the videos that I've got. Part 1 talked about the importance of teaching a child how to express their emotions so that way they understand how they're feeling. Part 2 talked about how to intervene before the meltdown, so what behaviors to look for before the meltdown even occurs so that you can intervene. So part 3 today we're going to talk about actually teaching your child what verbal and physical behavior they can engage in when they're feeling these feelings. So ideally, once you've identified what the precursor behaviors are, which were discussed in video 2, you want to go ahead and tell your child what words and behaviors they can engage in when they've identified what behavior they are feeling. It's also helpful to give them different options and different behaviors that they can engage in depending on the scenario, because obviously when you get angry or frustrated because of certain things, you have an array of options of things that you can do and say. So it's good to give them options so that they start to understand all the different things they can do, what works and what doesn't work, what's appropriate, what's inappropriate, and what you would recommend as someone who's been doing this for quite a bit. So let's talk about some examples in the moment so that you kind of understand what it looks like in practice. For a first example, let's say you have a child who's maybe a little older in school and is working on math homework. Just as an example, any subject will really do. We've all got something that frustrates us. So maybe you've identified the precursor behaviors. Maybe they're slamming things around. Maybe they're muttering under their breath. Maybe they're a little teary-eyed because they're really going through it. I think that once you've identified those precursors, like we talked about in the second video, and you go to intervene, you've identified the emotion that they're feeling. The next step is basically just to teach them coping strategies, right? Things that we can do in the moment. There are a lot of options. They can take 3 deep breaths if they're feeling super frustrated and teary-eyed and they just need a second to collect themselves. Maybe they just need a break. You can explain that there are different kinds of breaks they can take. They can take like a 5-minute break where they just maybe go sit outside. I wouldn't give access to any preferred activities during that time because it's going to teach them to put it off till later. That's not what we want. We just want to teach them to get a breather from it. So maybe instead of that, another option is for them to go get a glass of water or a snack, bring it back. Pair the horrible things with the good things. That's another good way to cope, When I have paperwork I have to do, I usually have sweet tea because it makes me happy. So these are things that you can teach a child to do in that kind of a scenario where, we all have our own coping strategies. So it's good to give them different examples, different options so that they can choose it so they feel in control, but they also are learning from you instead of engaging in inappropriate behavior. Let's say you have a younger child, 2 younger children. This happens a lot. They're playing. Next thing you know, one grabs something the other one has and it's utter chaos. You've got hitting, chasing, screaming, crying, the works. So once you've identified those precursors, you're going to swoop in, identify the emotion, and then we want to provide them with replacement appropriate behaviors to engage in. So there are a lot of options. Usually what I teach kids is they can ask for the toy back nicely. They can offer to trade one toy for another toy with their sibling. They can negotiate with them for time. They also have an option to go and get the parent if they were in the middle of playing and their sibling has snatched the toy from them. Maybe a parent wants to intervene. It's kind of up to you what you want to do in your house for those kinds of situations. And then another option is just maybe they don't want to play with them anymore. Fine, you're going to take my toy. I'm going to go find something else to do. Another common situation that occurs is when you have to tell your child no. Maybe you've provided them with choices if you've been following some of my tips or other people. A lot of us suggest that. If you tell someone no, provide choices. The rest of us are provided with choices pretty much in our regular lives whenever we're told no. So it's only fair to provide them with the same thing, especially because they're young and sometimes they need prompts to redirect to the more appropriate behavior. Let's say that you've told your child no and they're having difficulty tolerating it. Maybe you're in the early stages of teaching them to make a choice because you've said no, but you've provided them with choices. If you've identified those precursor behaviors, then you have some options on what things you can teach them to do. Usually if I have a child who is kind of teary-eyed, their lower lip is wobbling, they're about to cry, one quick thing you can do is teach them to take deep breaths. There's a cool thing I learned. You can have them smell the birthday cake and blow out the candles, which is the cutest thing I've ever heard. So that's a good technique. Have them do just 3 quick deep breaths to help get them under control a little before you can move on to other behaviors they can engage in. Usually at that point, there's really 2 choices. I'm like, I've given you choices, so you can either pick one of the choices that I have given you, or you can make your own choice, as long as it's something that's allowed, at that point in time. The last example I have for you is if your child is building something and it gets knocked over, maybe by them, by someone else inadvertently, whatever it is, they've gotten frustrated. What you can do in that situation is usually just teach them to go find an adult and ask for help, take deep breaths, maybe ask a sibling for help, or just try again. No big deal, you can always try again. The main thing is to keep your cool during these situations. Your child is most likely going to see how you're feeling and how you're handling it and feed off of that. So if you're calm and collected, it's going to help them calm down sooner. If you get nervous and frustrated with them and their behavior, then most likely they're going to feed off of that and their behavior is going to get worse. So keep that in mind. So that's part 3 down. I hope it was helpful. Please like, subscribe, and sign up for alerts below if you want to keep following the videos, more content, things like that. Don't forget to grab your freebie below if you need it. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye.